Dust hung in the pale light, slipping through the workshop's narrow windows, drifting slowly over cobwebs and tools nobody had touched in years. Carol stood frozen at the doorway, one hand pressed against the old, groaning frame. It was Saturday morning, the morning she'd been putting off for weeks. She exhaled slowly and pushed the door open. There was no avoiding it anymore. The workshop needed to be emptied, and Harold's belongings needed to be sold. Money was running out, forcing her into choices she never wanted to face. It had been 2 weeks since her husband passed, and grief still clung to everything around her. The house, the bedroom, even the air itself felt heavy with his absence. But this room was different. In all their years together, she had never once stepped inside it. It had been Harold's world alone, a place he vanished into every day after retiring, always saying he was fixing up old machines. Whenever she asked more, he'd brush her off, and eventually she stopped asking. Carrying a stack of empty boxes, Carol crossed the yard toward the shed. The door was locked, which didn't surprise her. Harold being Harold. She had no idea where he kept a key, and that alone made her chest tighten with frustration. A locksmith arrived within the hour and had it open in minutes, leaving her standing alone with a decade of secrets. Stepping inside, the first thing she noticed was the silence. Thick, undisturbed, forgotten. A layer of dust covered everything except one strange patch near the workbench, where the floor looked freshly swept clean, as though someone had stood there not long ago. Unsettled, Carol picked up her phone and called her son, Danny. He showed up a few hours later. "What's going on, Mom?" Danny asked, glancing around the cluttered space with cautious curiosity. Carol pointed at the clean patch of floor. "This bench, I think it's been moved recently. Help me push it." Together they shoved the heavy workbench aside, uncovering a wooden hatch set into the floorboards. Carol's pulse quickened as she stared down at it. Danny crouched, gripped the handle, and pulled. The hatch groaned open, exposing a narrow staircase disappearing into darkness. "Stay right behind me," Danny said, starting down the creaking steps. Carol followed close, gripping the rail tightly, her thoughts spinning with every possibility. The stairs opened into a small underground garage. Inside sat a single car, polished and gleaming, wildly out of place against the neglect above. Its vintage curves shimmered faintly beneath one bare bulb. On the dashboard, the navigation screen displayed a saved route, a 30-minute drive to a location neither of them recognized. "Do we go?" Danny asked, looking at his mother. Carol paused, then nodded firmly. "We need to know." She climbed into the passenger seat as Danny turned the key. The garage door lifted silently, revealing a concealed driveway that fed straight into the main road, hidden in plain sight for years. As they drove, Carol's mind raced through confusion, suspicion, and a growing dread. What exactly had Harold been hiding from her? The route ended at a rundown house on the edge of town, its paint peeling and its yard swallowed by weeds. Something about it felt familiar. Carol remembered it once being listed for sale, a listing she'd considered years ago before it vanished without explanation. "Place looks abandoned," Danny said as they stepped out. The front door was locked, and no one answered their knocking. Then Danny remembered a black pouch they'd found tucked in the car's glove box. Inside were several keys, a handful of plastic cards, and thick, neatly banded stacks of $100 bills. Carol stared at the money in disbelief. "There's gotta be thousands here," she murmured, her hands shaking as she sifted through the bills. But what truly stopped her heart were the identification cards, 5 of them, each bearing Harold's face beside a different name. The man she had spent her life beside had apparently lived several lives at once. Danny tried one of the keys, and the door clicked open. Inside, the house was just as neglected as the outside, dim, dusty, untouched for what looked like years. Using his phone's flashlight, Danny led the way through the silent rooms, Carol trailing close behind, her unease deepening with every step. "Why would Dad keep something like this from us?" Danny asked quietly. "I don't know," Carol answered, her voice unsteady. "But I intend to find out." They combed through the house, room by room, finding nothing until Danny headed upstairs alone. Carol stayed below, lowering herself onto a dust-covered couch, worn down by exhaustion and grief. Her mind kept circling back to Harold. How many lies had he told her? How much of the life they'd shared had even been real? A sudden shout from above snapped her out of it. "Mom, come look at this." She rushed up the creaking staircase, heart pounding, and found Danny standing in a small bedroom, pointing at a framed painting on the wall. As she stepped closer, The picture came into focus, a beautifully preserved family portrait of herself, Harold and Danny, taken years earlier. Unlike everything else in the house, it looked spotless, untouched by time or decay. "Why is this here?" Carol whispered, her eyes filling with tears. Danny lifted the painting carefully off the wall, uncovering a hidden safe behind it. An envelope was taped to its front. Inside was a letter, written in Harold's unmistakable handwriting. Carol's hands trembled as she began to read aloud. "My dearest Carol and Danny," it began. "If you're reading this, then I'm gone. There are things I never told you, things I'm far from proud of, but every choice I made for you." The letter unraveled a truth neither of them could have imagined. Years ago, Harold had drifted into a hidden world of crime almost by accident, renting out this very house to a man who needed somewhere quiet and discreet. That man turned out to be dangerous, and Harold, tempted by easy money, kept letting others use the property. Over time, he became a trusted name in a network that hid criminals, a secret life he buried completely from his family. "I never chose this path," the letter continued, "but once I was in, there was no clean way out. By the time I understood the danger, it was already too late. What's in the safe belongs to you both. Build the life I couldn't fully give you. I only hope, someday, you can forgive me." Danny flipped the letter over and found the safe's combination written on the back. When it opened, they both went silent. Inside were thick stacks of cash, more money than either had ever seen in one place, alongside documents outlining the full scope of Harold's hidden dealings. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Carol's emotions churned. Grief, anger, disbelief, all tangled together. How had the man she loved lived an entire second life without her ever suspecting, and yet, staring at the family portrait, some quiet part of her understood. Flawed as it was, he had done it trying to protect them. "What happens now?" Danny finally asked. Carol took a slow breath. "We use it carefully to honor who he really was and who he always wanted to be." They walked away from that house with more questions than they'd arrived with. But for the first time since Harold's death, Carol felt something close to hope. His story was far more complicated than she'd ever imagined, yet she chose to hold on to the good he'd left behind. Looking one last time at the painting, she understood that, in his own broken way, Harold had never stopped loving them.